Serious, NSFW. People who were friends with celebrities, of any kind, including adult films. How did they act once they started becoming famous? My old co-worker is now a TV director. Now all I hear from him is when he sends out mass texts asking for money for his next project. He still owes me $20 from when he was a nobody and I bought him dinner. Went to middle school work Selena Gomez. She was actually a real good friend of mine. She was very sweet and was just doing small gigs back then like a Joe's Crab Shack commercial. I tried once to write her to congratulate her on Get Success back when she was on the Disney Channel. No response. Was a great friend and awesome lunch buddy. Grew up with Andy Samberg. He was always pretty funny in the exact same style as he is now. He's pretty down to earth and treats people well, even when they're awkward around him. My parents went to his wedding and apparently that was crazy, big, lavish. What you'd expect from a celeb wedding. Also I owe him a Batman toy. I know one of the stars from Silicon Valley. He is still the same old hilarious dude he always was. Nice to see him having success. Tim Duncan. Literally, the exact same guy at 19 years old as he is this very moment. Minor exception being that he is slightly more guarded in areas involving his relationship's personal life because of messy situation with marriage. I'm good friends with Lord Ella, and she hasn't changed at all. She still wants to be treated like a normal kid. I saw her at my friend's house party and she was treated as was one of the kids on the block. I went to high school with Anna Kendrick. By the time I met her she had already been on Broadway, but she wasn't nearly as recognizable as she is now. She was getting major parts in both high school plays and movies like Camp while we were friends, but unless you specifically asked her about it, she never talked about it. I'm so happy that Anna has become beloved for her odd, funny, sweet, innocent and yet sarcastic and sharp personality, because it's exactly how she was in her day-to-day life when I knew her. Molly Holly, the WWE wrestler, used to babysit me. Well, she used to be a wrestler for WWE. I don't know how well known she is because I don't watch wrestling at all. I don't know her super well because I was really little when she babysat me, but when I got older I would run into her occasionally when she was home. Her mom was also my lunch lady at school, Bonnie Greenwald. Such a nice lady. Nora Greenwald is Molly Holly's real name, and she is super nice and down to earth. Every time I ran into her when I got older, she would tell me this story about when she babysat me. We were playing on the trampoline and I was pretending to be a tiger, and I guess I bit her finger super hard and made her bleed. I don't remember this at all, but she always brings it up. So basically, 3-year-old me took down a WWE wrestler. I went to school with Josh Gad, Ulf, various curly-haired chubby guys. Co-star in The Comedians. He's always been a warm-hearted, excessively energetic guy. Honestly, we still have a lot of mutual friends and he's really stayed the same. He's just a lot busier. He's one of the few people trying to break in who I really rooted for. Some people don't go bad, thankfully. Does Lindsay Stirling count? She isn't really super famous, but well known. It didn't change her too much. Played baseball with 2 guys growing up that ended up in the majors. I haven't heard from or seen the one since he got signed, but the other one actually comes in all the time. He's a relief pitcher for the Nationals now. He has been with about 6 teams now. He's not a big name guy but makes money doing what a lot of people dream of. He doesn't have a 7-figure deal but makes around $500K a year and hasn't changed a bit. He just recently bought a house because he got married and is expecting a kid. Last time I saw him was at a local bar and he was still living out of his parents' house when he was in town and paid everyone's bar tab off before leaving. He was always, and as far as I know, is still a real stand-up dude. I spent a few years in college photographing a lot of members of the Nick hip hop scene and saw a few friends and a few people I didn't know as well climb into relative notoriety. The biggest factor from my opinion was age and how long they spent working to get where they got. I had a friend that took almost a decade to get a major record deal, and while yay things changed for him, he didn't become some different person or anything. Some of his peers that became more successful rather quickly really became assholes though. There were a few people that I was cool enough with to have a conversation and chill while at functions together. But just a few months later, now that people knew who they were on a national stage, they were too cool for me. Mostly because I wasn't a musician myself, I think. And generally the younger they were when they had their break, the more it got to their heads. The difference between an 18-year-old seeing success and a 25-year-old seeing success was really significant. I also got to hear all kinds of insider dirt about a ton of celebrities, mostly from managers, publicists, since I guess they all know each other. I went to middle school with Chance the Rapper, and he's exactly what his persona gives off. A really down-to-earth guy who really just cares about making everyone around him happy and smile. I played high school football with Aaron Hernandez. He completely changed when he got famous. Never killed anyone when we were young. A friend of mine interned on The Price is Right a little over a decade ago. He called me when he went to the restroom after Bob Barker because Bob didn't flush his it, just left it floating. Man, I wish picture messaging was a thing back then. I'd have a picture of Bob Barker's turd. Instead I just have a hazy memory of my buddy describing it and the two of us having a good 10-minute conversation of what his daily fiber intake must be. That's about as close as I ever got to having a famous friend. Same guy as always, just very wary. His walls are higher because everyone asks him for it. So, when he's not working he rarely goes out to his regular favorites anymore. But he's still the same guy who watches out for his mom and family. Good level head. I went to high school with Larry Nance Jr. Now he got drafted to the Lakers. Pretty much the same guy. Can be okay. Can be a douche. I just remember his mom yelling at him in elementary school for not helping clean up after class party. I'm not sure if she's necessarily famous, but she's definitely well known, at least on Instagram. I went to high school with Nikki Heaton and she was a year younger than me. She was kind of full of herself before she became famous, but now she's even more so. I'm not sure when she felt like she was an ugly duckling because she always used to post Instagram selfies with about 50 hashtags like pretty hot pretter girl swag etc. She also used to annoyingly self-promote her YouTube account with her boyfriend at the time. Ask anyone in my graduating class, her graduating class, and maybe a couple years around us, and they most likely say that she's incredibly annoying and or that we're 100% over everyone being obsessed with her ass. I worked with Emma Stone for a few years. Granted it was after she'd come into some fame, but still, she is exactly how you see her on interviews. She's humble, hilarious, and down to earth. She treats everyone as if they're her equal and she's never met a stranger. I went to high school with Kanye. It was a quasi-gifted school in a middle-class suburb. He was just a normal kid like the rest of us. Part of the admissions process for this school was demonstrating a skill in one of the humanities. Both mine and Kanye's were art, but that and gym were the only classes we shared. He was talented and creative in a lot of things in that class, as was I actually, but he was kind of a schlep in gym class. Though it's not super fair of me to say that since I was among the few who played sports for my home school, where after I graduated Dwayne Wade went actually. My uncle has become a solid C+, maybe even a B in Hollywood. He still gets his kicks rummaging through and finding clothes in vintage shops, but he has all this money now. So instead of bumming around town he bought a mansion in another country and spends his time jet setting around the world. Also, his dog travels first class with him. And he got the dog from the pound in another country. What the hell? Every other person answering the question just up and names their relative on Reddit. Am I too paranoid or something? Justin Bieber. My younger brother went to high school with him and he came over to our house once. Flashback to grade 9. Justin and my brother decided it would be a good idea to play in a puddle that was right beside a house that was being built. My brother told me that he stripped down into his boxers and jumped in this puddle and stepped on a nail. He went home and my mom got a nasty phone call from his mother saying that he wouldn't be coming over again. He was a bad kid before he got famous, was very cocky and bragged about a lot of things. A lot of people in our town didn't like him and created a bad reputation for himself. I remember he was on the city bus with me and the kid beside him said, "This guy is going to be famous one day. Good for him for doing what he does. He is obviously very successful, but to me, he will always be the same person he was back in the day." Went to high school with, and was bullied by, a girl who went on to be a model on Project Runway. She was an entitled it in high school. continued to be an entitled itch while hiding behind a public persona once she was on the show. And as far as I know, might still be an entitled itch. Last I heard, she was some millionaire's trophy wife. But hey, she put me within 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon, so I can be grateful for that. Went to high school with someone who became a WWE wrestler in the last 8 years. You can come up with any cliche registered signed tired line about how nice, funny, and great he was and it would actually all apply to him. The dude was ducking awesome, hilarious, and genuinely great to be around. Even damn near every teacher loved him. I can't actually remember anyone who didn't like him. Taylor Lautner was my friend through middle school and into high school. He was already in the movies and such when he came to our school, but he was always super nice. He added me on Facebook after I moved away, but when I went to show someone after Twilight had come out he had deleted his Facebook. At that age I felt slighted, but now I realize he likely had to keep his personal info a little safer. Ashley Teasdale graduated from my high school as well, but she was a few years ahead of our grade. There's probably a few more people I'm missing, but those two are pretty notable. Edit. The younger son from the George Lopez show went to high school with me as well. Used to skate with him a bunch. Down to earth guy. I went to high school with Milan Lucic. The guy is exactly as douchey as he acts now. I went to high school with Michael Phelps. I can't claim we were friends, but he did sit next to me for a year in US government class. He was always nice to me and would make polite conversation before class. We were 100% in different social circles. I was shy nerdy, and as you can guess he was popular and well liked. This was around the time of his first run at the Olympics. I remember our school made a huge deal about it and declared Michael Phelps Day. He seemed a bit embarrassed by it all. He was a nice kid, a bit fidgety and bored in class though, but who wouldn't be? I kind of know a certain New Zealander pop musician. Internet friends. She didn't really change. I live near Nicholas Sparks. I go to school with some of his kids and I've talked with people who've known him before he went big. He was the image of a starving artist. Now he has his thumb in every pie. He helped build up a local private school. Then when he no longer liked the headmaster, he rallied the board and got rid of him. He introduced a new guy, which ended up backfiring because after the school didn't like him, mostly because he was completely inadequate for the job. The guy sued the school on the grounds of discrimination. He was Jewish, but not really. He identified as a Quaker Jew. Still don't know how that works. Nick's not the nicest guy. His wife left about half a year ago. She bought a house about 3 months before people around town knew. The magazines knew about 4 months after that. His kids are okay. Miles is nice. I play soccer with Landon. Savannah and Lexi I don't know anything about, but I haven't heard nice things yet. He puts tons of money into anything around town. Sure, he's pompous, but at least he's still charitable. Even let the fire department torch his house for training when he was remodeling. Went to high school with Sasha Grey, porn star. She was a mellow girl. Smoked a lot of weed. She was super cool about me messaging her on MySpace when she became famous. Apparently Wiz Khalifa sold my cousin weed a while back, so there's that. My oldest friend's little brother is the star of a pretty popular TV show on True TV. Not hugely famous, but he's on his way. Still the same cool, wacky, funny guy that I've known forever. It was kind of strange seeing his face on a billboard in Times Square knowing I beat him up in like 1984 or something. I knew this guy. We went to high school together. He is famous now. He is still cool. This is getting annoying. Just tell us who they are. Not a real celebrity, but my girlfriend was good friends with Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China. Apparently, after he won, he became a huge tool and alienated every friend he had before going on the show. Grew up family friends with Win and Will Butler of the Arcade Fire. They are great guys. We used to sneak the boozy eggnog at our parents' holiday parties when we were kids. They still send invites to shows. Just don't see them much anymore. Graduated with Audrey Batoni. She was a very nice person. I went to high school with a certain rap pop star. I was a freshman and he was a junior. I can say this. His original look and demeanor was much more street than what it is now. When he was coming up, he had gold teeth, wore a lot of baggy stuff, fat farm, DIs, had his hair long braided in cornrows. As he started to make it, like, after his first album dropped, I was out at a local strip club and he had his new entourage with him, and his new group of friends were basically controlling his moves. But, hey, now, he is at what he's at. I went to high school with that guy who got high on bath salts and ate a homeless man's face a few years back. I knew Macklemore as a teenager. We had lots of mutual friends and hung out quite a few times, but were never particularly close. I spent enough time with him to have a few embarrassing stories to share. I didn't pay him much attention because he bullied my brother at school. He was a run-of-the-mill, not super popular but not unpopular, average semi-douchey, cocky teenager. Didn't stand out much. It seems like he did the normal thing douchey teens do and grew out of it into a decent guy. Anyway, I'm glad he's become so successful. Close friend of mine was the lead singer of a very popular alternative rock band. Replaced the original deceased lead singer. Starred in music videos and toured. He answered the phone whenever I called, and when he was in town, we would hang out. As his popularity grew, he got tunnel vision and we would hang out less. Eventually, he stopped answering the phone altogether. The last I talked to him, he stated that everyone needed something from him, be it money, a picture, an interview, an autograph, etc. No one would ever ask him, "How are you?" It was always about the other person, so he just cut everyone out of his life. Edit. Out of respect for my friend and how he used to confide in me, I don't want to identify him. However, I will say that a couple of you did identify him correctly. My grandfather was in the same army unit as Elvis Presley, since Elvis was the jeep driver for the company commander and my grandfather was a senior NCO. They would see each other very often. My grandfather speaks highly of Elvis. He did what he was called up to do with little fanfare and was a hard worker who did right by his fellow soldiers. I was friends with the kid who played Rico in Hannah Montana, Moises Arias, in elementary school. He was one of the chillest kids in school back then, but now he's a complete douche. I used to work out with JJ Watt, Texans defensive end. Super hard working dude. Super positive. Although I don't really know how he is now. My last conversation with him was help on some economics homework in college. I knew a kid that was a popsicle model for Bluebell. He was 5 years old at the time and didn't seem to enjoy the work. I'm currently friends with Dave Matthews. I met him about 10 years ago and we totally clicked. I can't stand his music, but he's a super rad dude. Totally down to earth. Not arrogant. Runs his own errands and raises his own kids. If a fan ever approaches him, he stops what he's doing and always takes the time to talk, which I really love. He also smokes hella weed. Played with a now famous Dutch YouTuber. He always was making funny videos and decided to put them on YouTube. He didn't change at all. Now has a YouTube gaming channel. It's funny. All his fans are like 11-year-old and run over to him asking for a picture and fangirling. A buddy of mine moved to LA years ago to become a famous actor. It worked. He started doing commercials, then got cast on an HBO show. Now he's doing bit parts in movies and showing up all over the place. Same guy as always. Well, I guess when I first met him, he would just tell D jokes over Xbox Live. Now he does it on HBO and gets paid for it.